My wife, Jeanette.
Hi, everyone.
So they came to me a few weeks ago and said, all right, the night of the primary, we got to have a kickoff. We need to find a place that has a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, a lot of love for America, a lot of patriotism. We need to be surrounded by people that understand how special, how unique, and how great this country is. We need a place with common sense. Where can we go? And there's a lot of choices in Florida. But I said, well, we have a lot of great places in Florida, and I run statewide. I love the whole state. I said, but there's this one place. There's this one place fueled by Cuban coffee, but also fueled by the understanding of how great and special this country is, because it's filled with people that know what life is like somewhere else. And that place is called Hialeah, and I'm proud to be here with you tonight, because this is the place where the fight begins. And for those visiting Hialeah for the first time, we have some friends here visiting for the first time. Do not be alarmed. These are great Americans that I'm so proud to call constituents and friends. Muchas gracias por estar aquí en esta noche tan importante. Vamos a hablar en español al final. I just said I'm going to save a bunch of money by switching to Geico if you don't speak Spanish. But now I'm going to get sued by, Progressive. So I don't want progressive insurance. Well, I want conservative insurance. But I do have progressive because it was cheaper, so I got it anyway. But anyway, look. Whatever's the cheapest, guys. You got to go with that because the gas price is so high. So Joe Biden is bragging about lower gas prices. Oh, the gas price went down. It's $1 more than when he took over. And here's what I remember. About 2 months ago when gas prices were like $180 a gallon or whatever crazy number it was. And he was like, I can't do anything about gas prices. Presidents don't control the gas price, and it's Vladimir Putin's fault. Well, does that mean we should be thanking Vladimir Putin now that it went down 25 cents? The reason why gas prices were high is the same reason why so many other things are wrong in America, the same reason why this election is so important. And that is that the Democratic Party, and I say this with sadness, a little bit of sadness, not a lot of sadness, I say this with sadness, the Democratic Party's been taken over by radical left-wing lunatics, laptop liberals, and Marxist misfits. Those are the people that have taken over that party. I wish this country had two normal political parties so we can debate, should the taxes be 18% or 19%? But that's not what we debate anymore. We debate crazy things, insanity. We debate with people that do not believe, for example, that this is a special country. It starts with our history. I never said America's history was perfect. What I said was our history is better than anybody else's history in the history of all mankind. No nation has a better history. But they will never be satisfied. Marxism is never satisfied. Marxism is more than socialism. Socialism is a system of economics, and it doesn't work. And we have boatloads of refugees to prove it. But Marxism is about more than just economics. It's about controlling everything. Marxism cannot tolerate competition of any kind. It cannot tolerate competition from parents and the family, so it teaches children. Your parents don't know what they're talking about. Listen to us. It can't tolerate a debate, so it tries to stifle speech. It has to use the schools to indoctrinate, not teach. Then it moves on to actually change your language. These people have made up an entire language. Please raise your hand if you're Latinx. I didn't even know what that meant. I thought that was some sort of boy band from the 80s. Latinx, I kept looking up on iTunes, I couldn't find them. These people have made up their own language. We are not tacos, that's correct. We are not tacos. These people, listen. You can't live in Miami and not know Democrats. We've known Democrats our whole life. I've known liberals my whole life. I've never known this insanity. These elections are so important, it virtually doesn't even I see it every day. You think all these people that are actually elected, for example, to the Senate actually believe some of this stuff? They don't have a choice. They do it because they're afraid of their own base, and it's a radical base. And so they go along with it. And the hypocrisy is extraordinary, but they've left behind millions of Americans. I have a message tonight to our Democrat friends that are out there. Your party has abandoned you. If you're a Democrat, a working class Democrat, maybe you've voted Democrat your whole life because your parents were members of unions, or you're a member of a union, or for whatever reason. I say to you tonight, your party has abandoned you. It's no longer the party that cares about working people. They don't care about working people. If they cared about working people, we wouldn't have spent all that time debating about solar panels, electric cars, and 87,000 IRS agents. What we would have spent our time working on is how do we produce more American oil and natural gas so life is more affordable for our families. What we would have focused on is how do we secure our border so we're not the only country in the world being overrun by illegal immigration. If they cared about families and they cared about working people, what we would have focused on is what can we do to bring back more factories and more jobs out of China and back to America and back to places like Hialeah. And if they cared about American families, working families, they cared about working families, they wouldn't be going around this country supporting prosecutors who refuse to put criminals in jail. Entire categories of crime that they will not prosecute. They don't care about working Americans. Their agenda is controlled by laptop liberals, by people that can afford to work from home and are going to work from home the rest of their lives. Even the House of Representatives have become a work from home place. You know that my opponent, Val Demings, so many times she's voted from her pajamas or whatever she was wearing? Because they have this thing called proxy voting. She can be anywhere on the planet. The nominee appears to be the next nominee for Florida governor for the Democrats, Charlie Crist. He was once a Republican, then he ran as an independent. He's a vegetarian. Now he's a Democrat. Charlie Crist, I don't even think he's been in Washington for a year. They can vote remotely. They can work remotely. You can't work remotely. If you work at CVS or Walgreens, you can't work remotely. If you're a firefighter or a police officer, there's no such thing as working from home. But these people have that luxury. They can afford electric cars and solar panels. And they can especially afford it even more now that they're going to get a bunch of tax credits with your money. They hire 87,000 IRS agents. That's larger than the British Army. And some of them apparently are going to be armed. Some of them are going to be armed. Right, exactly. Well, IRS agents at the border, I guess collecting taxes. I don't know what they would do with it. I imagine they... But think about that. We don't have 87,000 billionaires, guys. You know who they're going to go after? I'm going to tell you who they're going to go after. The small business owner who doesn't have a lawyer and a fancy accountant to fight him off. Because these 87,000 agents have been told you have to collect $100 billion a year in taxes. That's who they're going to go after. That's what these people are for. It doesn't matter what these individual candidates tell you they believe in. They're going to follow the line. Now, Nancy Pelosi, I don't know if you've heard of her. She's a congresswoman from San Francisco. She's one of the few people left in California that hasn't moved to Florida. And, but she actually doesn't have to, because my opponent is a congresswoman by the name of Val Demings. She's been there for 6 years, and she's voted with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. 100%. I don't even think Nancy Pelosi's voted with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. So they handpick her. Why do they handpick her? Because Chuck Schumer says, I need someone I can count on 100% of the time to do whatever I tell him. This opponent of mine, you know, she wanted to be, well, first of all, she ran for mayor of Orlando and dropped out. Then she wanted to be Charlie Crist's lieutenant governor, I guess the third time he ran for governor. I don't know how many times he's run for governor, but it's like one of those comets that comes every few years. And in 2014, he ran for governor. She wanted to be his LG. Then she ran for Congress, and she lost. Then she ran for Congress, and she won. She's been there, I don't know how many years. She's done nothing. Not a single law passed. Nothing. Not a single law. But in the process, she decided, I'd like to be vice president. So she campaigned to be Joe Biden's vice president. You know how she did that? Here's how she did it. The left wing of her radical party hated police officers. And she was a police officer. And that was a negative thing to them. So she decided, I've got to be a former police officer that's attacking police officers. And that's what she did. She called what Minneapolis was thinking about defunding the police. She said, that's very thoughtful. When people were in the street burning down cities, she said, oh, it was a beautiful sight. Now she says she's against defunding the police 2 years later. They didn't need you to say it now. They needed you to say it when people were burning the streets and torching police cars. That's when they needed you to say it, and she didn't. And that's why every police group in the state, virtually every sheriff in the state, the Police Chiefs Association, have all endorsed me, because it's even worse. Had she not been a police officer, it would have been better. She was a police officer. That's what makes it even worse. She turned her back on law enforcement, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. She voted against deporting criminal aliens. She says what's happening at the border is natural and normal, that that's the way it's always been. She actually said there are more people leaving than coming. I said there are more people leaving New York than coming to New York. There are more people leaving Chicago than coming to Chicago. There are more people leaving California. But there are not more people leaving America than coming. That's who my opponent is. And that's who they put up and down the ballot. Their Attorney General nominee here in Florida is going to be someone that literally says, I want to be Attorney General so we will let people out of jails. They want to destroy this state. And we learned through the pandemic how important it is with these state offices. My job in Washington right now is to keep more bad things from happening, as terrible as that sounds. As long as this guy's in the White House, we're stuck with him, I think, another 2 years. Yeah, 2 years and a few months. Maybe we shouldn't tell him that, he might forget. But I'm hoping he'll come to Florida and campaign against me. I'm actually encouraging him to come. Please come to Florida, Joe Biden, campaign against me. Then I'll be able to campaign remotely the way they vote remotely. But look, these people, they want to do to America what they've done to California, what they've done to New York. And that's not who we want to be. And my job for the next 2 years, if we can get the majority, is just to keep them from doing more harm to this nation. Because here's the truth. And it's a truth that you understand. And some of the people covering this won't like it, and they'll say, oh, you're being exaggerated. Guys, one of the things I get really irritated about is, oh, they're tricking the Hispanics about socialism. These people can't be tricked. They've lived it, they've seen it, they understand it. They understand how this starts, how it begins, and more importantly, they understand how it ends and what it ends in. What these people want for this country will destroy this country. It will change it forever. It will change it forever. And there are millions of patriotic Americans that will not stand by and watch that. But none will fight harder than those who know what life is like in another place, who had to rebuild their lives in this nation. They will not leave for their children the disaster that they had to live through in the nation of their birth. And in our system of government, what protects us is a constitution that says we need to have a federal government, and it needs to be a limited government. And it needs to do some important things, like, for example, have a military less focused on the proper use of pronouns and more focused on blowing up Chinese aircraft carriers and winning wars. We need to have presidents and federal agencies more focused, less focused, for example, on beefing up the IRS, and more focused on securing our border so that every day 8,000 people and tons of fentanyl don't flood into our country. That's what we need, a federal government. We don't need a federal government negotiating across the table from an Iran that's trying to assassinate former members of the Trump administration. And they're sitting across the table negotiating with these people. We don't need that. We need a federal government that does what it's supposed to do. Because the true power of government, the true power in our society should be in your home, in your community, and in your families. And to the extent that there needs to be government power, it should be in our cities, in our counties, in our states, in our school boards. That's where it needs to be. And we have benefited from that greatly. Imagine if the Honorable Dr. Anthony Fauci had been in charge of a national response. We would still be wearing hazmat suits and 3 masks. Okay? Thank God that in our system of government, they give recommendations. But individual states and communities decided that. Now look, no one's going to lie. Okay, listen, at the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what this. I don't know about you. I knew people that used to burn their clothes in the garage. Some of you probably did that early on. Nobody knew, okay? First couple weeks, we didn't know. And then we figured it out. Hey, I think this thing is spread airborne. And yet for months, even here in Florida, in some of these communities, they had yellow, like murder tape. You know, like when somebody gets murdered, the yellow tape around the playgrounds. And then thank God, we happen to have elected a governor that's like not crazy. Is still in touch with like common sense. And he's like, I think maybe I'm not going to let these cities and counties enforce these fines anymore. There were people being arrested for being on the beach. Do you remember this? So thank God that ended. And then we decided, you know what? I think it's time to go back to work, guys. I mean, we're going to have to figure this out. It's like, oh my God, they're all going to die. I said, no, they're all going to die if they don't go back to work. And it was funny because some people were working. Like, I guarantee you, if you shut down CVS, Walgreens, Publix, they weren't for that. They were for shutting down these other things. Then we had riots. Nobody had a mask, and the people that had a mask did not have a mask, COVID mask. They had a mask so like the police couldn't identify a mask. Throwing Molotov cocktails, setting buildings on fire. Oh, no. That we have to allow. Peaceful protest, there was no social distancing there. Hypocrisy. And issue after issue, we were saved. And people moved here to get away from that and learned a valuable lesson. And our job is to ensure that the federal government and people in the central government can never, ever have the kind of power over our lives that way. That we never allow that to happen. So that states can elect people with common sense that understand what life is like for real people in the real world. That's what's at stake in these elections. So I'll close with this. We need your help. We do. These people have a lot of money. My opponent has raised millions and millions of dollars in $50 increments coming from everywhere. We don't even know where it's coming from. But it's not from Florida. It's from a bunch of people that wake up in the morning and have Twitter on one screen and MSNBC on the other and CNN on the side. And they donate money to candidates all over the country, but they especially donate to candidates in Florida because they hate our success. They despise that Florida has embarrassed them. And they're obsessed with it. And they're obsessed with it. So we're going to be outraged, and that's okay. We just need enough money to get our message out. But we need people out there voting. We can't sit back and assume, oh, I heard this is going to be a good election. We don't need to turn out and vote. That's not true. It doesn't matter how much support you have. If that support doesn't turn into votes, you don't win elections. So we start here today by asking you to do what Hialeah always does and what I know Florida always does, and that is come out and vote, make a difference, and make sure that other people vote, because what's at stake is too important. Quiero cerrar en español diciendo brevemente que estas son elecciones críticas. El Partido Demócrata en este momento es controlado por extremistas de izquierda, por marxistas, que tienen un plan que va a destruir este país y no lo podemos permitir. Estas son elecciones sumamente importantes. Mi oponente ha votado con Nancy Pelosi 100% y no podemos permitir que alguien como esa se apodere de este escaño y cambie para siempre el destino de este país de una manera tan negativa. Ninguna comunidad en este estado, ninguna comunidad en este país conoce mejor que la nuestra lo grande que es este país y lo importante que es preservarla para futuras generaciones. Y por eso le pido su voto y le pido que salgan a votar y que saquen a sus vecinos a votar y que saquen a sus familiares a votar para ganar y para salvar este gran país. We are going to win this November. And when we win in November, we're going to put a stop to this destruction. And then, God willing, in 2 years, someone will be in the White House that isn't this guy with common sense, with an understanding about America's future, that believes in the greatness of our country, and we will save our country, and we will leave for our children what our parents, what our grandparents, what previous Americans left for us, the single greatest country in the history of all of mankind. We need to go win, and we need your help. Thank you. God bless you.